All right, so you can see here I have the top selected. This is what we have before. We want to sort of look at how we can unwrap the side pieces here. So what I'm going to do is really just deleting the rest of these except for one. And I'm going to unwrap that one by itself. So let's go ahead and isolate all of the pieces that we have in place. Now these faces on the bottom here, I'm just going to delete them out. And we can go with a different little process here. We can go up and use automatic unwrapping actually in order to unwrap this a little bit better. So these inside faces will get laid out as individual chunks, and then the same thing with the top and the sides, and then we'll have to use move and sew or the others to stitch it. So one way is to do an X here, and then we can select those inside edges, and then we'll use an alternative method, which is using automatic mapping, which I kind of like sometimes. It just helps me lay things out or see it a little bit better. So you can see here I select this inside edge, and you can hit Shift X to cut those up. Or as I mentioned, like we'll go up here and we'll just select automatic mapping. So you can see it laid them out as individual pieces. Now what I want to do is select the edges of this box here, the top face box, and then just kind of select each edge and then stitch them together. So let's go ahead and do that. So you can see where each edge corresponds in the scene. So if I select the bottom edge and I do move and sew, it'll move the corresponding face, the side face for this one, for example, onto the side here. And then you could hit G to redo last action. So another way is up at the top, you can select move and sew up there. So I'm hitting G here to redo this one. Let's kind of move all this stuff out of the way. Just move and sewing and cutting here. And then for the inside piece, I kind of want it to be a long continuous line. So that's one way of doing it. So I'm going to show you two ways. One, we can have it as one long piece, or since there's a hole in the top of my box here, we can place them all inside. So let's look at step one first, where we're going to make it one continuous piece. So I'm just going to move and sew all those edges, and then I'm going to rotate it so you can see that, you know, here's one way of laying it out pretty cleanly. So just double clicking the UVs there. Now as I mentioned before, if I select all these inside edges here and I hit Shift X, I can cut them. And then I'm going to double click each one and just kind of move them inside the box. It doesn't have to be perfect, but if you have an art director who's pretty kind of a stickler for this stuff, they're going to get on your case about making sure that each one of these is laid out perfectly. But I think for the sake of this, it's more of a learning tutorial on how to unwrap a complex object like an oven. This is fine. All right, so I'm going to scale all these down just to fit them a little bit in there better. All right, great. Now let's bring the other things back for a second. Let's combine these. Another thing I want to do is, you know, I just want to position this in a place where I need it to first before I do the duplicating it for the three other pieces. So let's do a UV shell on this. And let's move this off to the right-hand corner. And what's nice about this technique of like copying and moving and replacing is that with this technique we are conserving a lot of texture space. So we actually use like a 1024 texture and it'll look phenomenal. All right. So just going to hold Shift here, hit W, make sure our pivot is centered, and just kind of move these pieces around. There we go. Looking good. Let's grab both of these and let's do it again. And honestly, these might need to be a little bit thickened a little, but that's okay. Now for this inside box here, this long lean one, it's really just the combination. It's really just one of these other boxes. You can see this little guy on the inside here, or the tall thin one where the other rails are. This guy right here. It's really the other one's just longer. So we can save ourselves a ton of time by just deleting this one out and then selecting one of the other ones and unwrapping it. So we have, I'm going to go to face mode and then duplicate face this thing. So just shift right clicking, duplicate face, and then go to object mode, and then select it. And remember, we always got to center the pivot because it goes towards the world. And then I'm just going to move it into place and just sort of modify it a little bit here by scaling it in and There we go. And then maybe playing a little bit with these inside faces so that it has a little bit more width to it on the inside, because the walls are thinner than the other sides, and we want a little bit more uniformity here. There we go. Looking good. And I'm just going to grab these again and then just move them. There we go. All right, another thing we want to do is, you see all these little cylinders in here that make up that top grill? What I can do here is I'm just going to delete all of them but one. So let me position this thing in place here. Actually, what I'm doing is I'm unfolding that outside box, because the truth is, even though we duplicated it, our UVs are not perfect. So what I did there is I unfolded this, and I'm going to position these other ones in place, and then I'm just unfolding these other pieces and just sort of moving and positioning them. All right, let me go ahead and move this into place before we start to work on our cylinders. And again, this doesn't have to be crazy or anything, but its positioning there is fine. I mean, honestly, I think by the end of this, it won't be a perfect unwrap, because your art director is going to want it, like if they're a stickler, they're going to make sure there's the textile density and all that stuff is good. For now, though, I mean, again, this is just learning how to unwrap and place the UVs in a good spot. And then by the end of this, you're going to have a very, very good, I mean, portfolio-worthy UV. So let's go ahead and delete all this stuff out. And really what I'm going to do is just unwrap one of these, I'm sure, and then duplicate it using the cylinder method I showed you before. What I'd like to do is just show you how easy it is to do automatic unwrapping with this. So I'm just going to press 4 and just kind of move this so I can select these a little bit easier. Just got a couple more to go. All right, there we go. All right, now on this one, I'm going to do the automatic mapping technique. And let's just go ahead and stitch it. Now the top looks pretty good. Those look really good. I will probably I think I'm just going to stack those on top of each other, those two side pieces. Once we get it all together, because they don't really need to. And then we could use something like our stacked UV shells on that. So let's go ahead and combine, or get these, not necessarily combine, but just get them in the same family so we can position them. And I'm just looking for any really good empty space. This looks like a good spot right here, where it's got pretty good, spacing. Let's use our stack UVs here to stack these two on top of each other. Because these are so similar in size, it's probably going to do a perfect stack. So I think it's under Arrange and Layout or Align and Snap. I think it's Arrange and Layout. Yeah, there it is. All right, see how it was perfectly stacked? So it looks pretty good. Let's position this here, and we could actually go a little bit bigger on my circle there to take up that whole space. But for now, you barely will see the sides. And if most art directors would actually say, you know what, if you're not going to see those sides, go ahead and delete it. Because like you can use that for later. Like you can use all those extra faces to, even if you're doing something on Unreal 5 or like a bigger engine, it's really good that you can, like you still want to conserve some geometry for the things that mean the most, like some of the characters that you're going to meet or animations. All of this stuff takes up considerable amount of data when you're making a game, and I really don't think we're there yet where we're able to have unlimited polygons and texture sizes and all that. I mean, I'm telling you from personal experience, as I'm building these games myself, I try to push the limits of the quality, because as an artist, a tech artist, I love, A, optimization, and B, like as much as I can get in there, like how much I can stack. So this is going to be kind of difficult to kind of grab all these. So what I'm going to do is just marquee that whole top to combine it, and then just get rid of the other faces that I'm selecting. So let's go ahead and try that. I'm going to try to marquee everything that's already unwrapped. And then I'm going to just deselect the things that are not. So let's hit 4 and then just kind of, oh, I could see what's been selected. And yeah, I mean, that's everything so far, I believe. There's one more thing I want to do, and that's like those little guys underneath. I'm going to unwrap those, and that's going to be very easy. I'm really just going to duplicate the other cylinder in the scene that's already unwrapped. And then we'll move those into place. So let me go ahead and delete out the ones that are underneath it. These guys right here. Yeah. So, and actually I kind of like that it's true to form with the 5 that are there, but I'm going to probably go a little bit, add a few more just because they look cool to me. So let's position this a little lower. That looks pretty good. And then let's just grab one of our burners and then duplicate that and then move those pieces into place. And let's center pivot on that. And then I'm going to scale it down, move it to where I need it to be. Let's maybe we'll go to wireframe mode so we can see that a little bit better. All right, looks good. All right, and then let's move these UVs where we need them to be. All right, I think this is a good spot right here. It's a lot of dead zone. Just double clicking that, let's move that there. Then I'll kind of rotate this piece and position it just off to the side. Like you're not going to see it, and most art directors might even tell you, hey, you know what, to conserve polys, go ahead and delete those faces off. We only just need to see the top of that cap. But for now, I think it's okay. Let's assume for our game or our film or whatever we're using that we're going to see that again. All right, so let's duplicate this a bunch. I'm just going to copy it, holding shift and moving it. And just, I'm adding more than the initial 5, just because I think they look cool. And let's combine it, and this is pretty much it. After I combine it, maybe let's just kind of straighten them out a little bit, like keep them so they're all in line, more towards the center. And then let's combine it with what's there, and then we've got our UVs. Now the rest of the model is going to get a little bit quicker because a lot of it is repetitive and they're simple shapes. And I wanted to start with the top because it's a little more tough. But that's it for now. In the next video, we'll take a look at the rest.